The Vorcan Empire, the galaxy's mightiest fleet, the most disciplined warriors the galaxy had ever known, began the conquest of Earth after years of flawless planning. They did not rush, they did not boast, they calculated. They had watched the Kelnari Swarm fail years before, and they were impressed by Earth's warriors. They acknowledged kindred spirits in humanity. Born warriors, a real test for the Empire, and warriors who would make a fine addition to the legions once they had been subjugated. When the Vorcan Armada emerged from hyperspace and appeared beyond the moon, it did so with surgical precision. Human early warning systems screamed for less than a minute before orbital lances erased them. Satellites died in silence, communications fractured, the planet was blind before it understood it was under attack. Then the invasion began. Vorcan warships settled into low orbit, their presence bending tides and skies alike. Drop legions descended in burning arcs, striking capitals, industrial hubs, and military strongholds simultaneously. Their soldiers moved like machines. Towering figures in adaptive armor, shields shifting between impacts, weapons learning with every exchange. Humanity fought anyway. Of course it did. The Vorcans fully expected them to. Fighter pilots launched knowing they would not return. Ground forces held streets until ammunition ran dry, then fought with whatever they could lift. Cities became fortresses. Fortresses became graves. Every hour the Vorcan advance slowed cost the Empire more than expected, and humanity paid for every second in blood. By the end of the first day, the oceans burned with wreckage. By the second, the skies belonged entirely to the Vorcan fleet. By the third, the numbers could no longer be ignored. Supply lines collapsed, command networks fell silent, entire divisions vanished under orbital fire. Governments issued evacuation orders that could not be carried out, then went dark themselves. Humanity had fought bravely, but bravery does not stop an empire. On the third night, the order was given quietly, reluctantly, and far too late. Retreat. Surviving forces pulled back from cities into wilderness, mountains, and underground shelters. What had been a global defense fractured into scattered pockets of resistance. Fires burned unchecked across continents as Vorcan banners rose over ruined skylines. Vorcan High Command marked the campaign a success in progress. Earth's fall was now a matter of time. Yet even as humanity withdrew, something strange began to appear in Vorcan after action reports. Units lost without combat, weapons failing in localized zones. Battlefields where no human signatures remained, yet no Vorcan bodies were found either. As humanity retreated into the shadows of its own world, the Vorcan Empire believed the war was nearly won. They did not yet understand that Earth's defenders were no longer the only ones watching. By the fourth day of the invasion, the sky no longer looked like Earth's. Vorcan war cruisers hung in low orbit like jagged moons, their hulls glowing ember red as they bled heat into the atmosphere. Entire coastlines burned. Cities that had once pulsed with light were now dark scars, choked with smoke and drifting ash. Humanity had fought hard, harder than the Vorcan strategists had predicted, but attrition is a language empires speak fluently. Orbital defenses were gone. The last of the defense fleet was gone just a few hours ago. Across command bunkers and shattered headquarters, the same grim calculation repeated itself. 12 hours, maybe less. On the plains of Eastern Europe, the Vorcan ground legions advanced in perfect, mechanical waves. Tripods strode through craters, their plasma scythes carving glowing arcs through tanks and fortifications. Above them, hunter drones screamed through the clouds, reducing resistance to molten glass. Victory was inevitable. Then the sensors went blind. Every Vorcan display from orbit to the lowest infantry visor flooded with static. Not interference, not jamming, something else. Then the sky tore open. Glowing hexagonal gates appeared in the sky itself. They weren't rifts or portals in the usual sense. Space itself folded inward, collapsing like a lung exhaling, and from one impossible compression dropped a single figure. Cloaked in black armor that drank in light, face hidden behind a skull-white mask split by burning blue eyes. Ghost. The Vorcan command AI flagged him a fraction of a second too late. Behind him, reality shattered again. You see, when the Immortals had wiped out the Kelnari Swarm, they had also learned how the Swarm had created portals directly onto Earth. And now Ghost was using that same technology to come to Earth's rescue. First dozens, then hundreds started dropping from the gates like falling stars. The Immortals. Men and women in battle-worn armor etched with kill marks. Some carried blades humming with contained singularities. Others bore rifles that bent gravity with every pull of the trigger. They hit the Vorcan front line like a god's hammer. Tripods died screaming as their cores were ripped out by hand. Plasma fire curved away from Ghost as if afraid to touch him. An immortal leapt onto a command walker, drove a spear through its skull, and rode the explosion down laughing. In orbit, 3 Vorcan cruisers vanished. Simply erased when sleek, dark, fighter aircraft of unknown design opened fire as they poured out of the gates. For the first time since the Empire's founding, Vorcan commanders felt something unfamiliar ripple through their ranks. Fear. Ghost spoke at last, his voice carried across every frequency, every channel, every mind augmented enough to hear it. Earth is under our protection, he said calmly. You should have checked the borders. The Immortals advanced, and hell followed with them. The moment the Immortals fully committed, the war stopped being a battle. It became an execution. Across Earth's surface, Immortal strike cells fanned out with impossible speed. They didn't advance in lines or formations, there was no need. Each Immortal was a self-contained catastrophe. Cities that had been lost hours earlier were reclaimed in minutes as Vorcan legions simply ceased to exist. In the ruins of Shanghai, an Immortal known as Ashfall walked straight through a Vorcan siege column. Plasma bolts froze mid-air around her, suspended like insects in amber. She snapped her fingers once. Every bolt reversed course. The street vanished in white fire. Some sort of reversed shield technology now being deployed as a personal weapon. Over the Sahara, Ghost himself descended into the heart of a Vorcan planetary drill and engine designed to fracture Earth's mantle. Vorcan elites emptied entire arsenals into him. The rounds didn't miss. They just didn't matter. Immortals could not die. They simply regenerated, and Ghost had died many times before. Ghost reached the core, placed his charges, and simply jumped as explosions ruptured all around him. The drill collapsed into rubble. In orbit, the Immortals were worse. Vorcan admirals tried to regroup, pulling fleets into defensive lattices, activating Empire-grade countermeasures never before deployed outside classified simulations. None of it slowed what came next. Immortals landed directly onto the hulls of Vorcan cruisers, boots magnetizing for half a heartbeat before they no longer needed physics at all. Blades cut through meters of war steel like cloth. Gravity weapons turned corridors inside out. Entire crews died without ever seeing their killers. Another Immortal designation, Amorphous, flew through space, her small fighter cutting a path through enemy defense fire. She drove herself through a battleship's spine, ripping into its core, sending it hurling into a nearby carrier. 2 ships died together in a silent, expanding bloom of debris. The Vorcan Empire tried to surrender. Their transmissions never finished sending. Ghost stood at the center of it all, watching the Empire unravel in real time. He raised his voice again, not in anger, not in triumph, but in finality. This ends now. His message came through on all frequencies. Every Vorcan command node, every AI governor, every Empire-linked mind across all conquered systems heard him then. Their networks suddenly collapsed. Ships went dead, weapons powered down, soldiers fell to their knees, systems locked, bodies suddenly mortal. Somehow the Immortals had hacked their entire system during the battle and brought the whole Vorcan Empire to its knees. Vorcan commanders frantically tried to reset the systems, but it was too late. Ghost's AI Asia had already deployed the virus. The invasion was over. The Vorcan Empire had been defeated. When the last Vorcan vessel burned up in Earth's atmosphere, humanity looked back up at the sky and, for the first time since the invasion began, saw stars again. The Immortals didn't celebrate. They simply vanished, one by one, slipping back into the folds of reality as quietly as they had arrived. Only Ghost lingered for a moment longer, standing alone above the planet he had just saved. Then even he was gone. The Vorcan Empire would never threaten Earth again.